team. He's also a private legal practitioner, lawyer, Duke Sasu. Counsel, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
I trust you're fine.
I'm great. I'm great, sir.
Great.
I'm in high spirit, especially how Ghanaians are responding positively to the launch of the Great Transformational Plan. It is clear that only one candidate has a plan for this country. A few months to elections, and both the NDC and the MPP have not been able to show us a single line of what plan they have for this country. They are preparing to produce the usual promises without showing us how they will even materialize those promises. But the times have changed, and Allah has shown the way. A comprehensive plan that will transform this country.
The Great Transformational Plan.
And
right.
I have a copy here.
I have a copy too, by the way.
It is now the Bible of the country, the gospel according to Allah.
Right.
Well, one that my senior colleague here has probably never witnessed in the history of this country. but probably he will engage him today.
ABF Husseini has lived in about three generations, if I'm not wrong.
I've never seen him.
He's been here since the days of Kwame Nkrumah.
I know.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning, and good morning to your good self. To my brother from the Afra Frantoe.
Exactly.
Your technical people, the viewers of Pan Africa, and the Blichina people of the Sanaro constituency. One thing I've learned in life is that don't be in a hurry to dance yourself lame before the real dance. A dance that will dance all night long. If you are in a hurry before even the first drum beats, when the dance actually begins, all your feet will be sore. You can't dance again. So I will salute my brother. They have done well. At least our politics should be anchored on a positive exchange of ideas. It is from the exchange of ideas that you can pick out the best and move the country forward. So I salute the movement for change, for endeavoring to put something out there for Ghanaians to peruse what it is that they think is a positive development. But that by no means should go them to believe that they have the title in their hands and they are running wild in celebration. Like I said, we already have put before Ghanaians what it is that His Excellency President Mahama would do. You see, it is not only through maybe the putting out the blueprint, like you said, in a book. I think one of the most discussed issues today is the 24-hour economy. And my brother is aware that it's a key plank of His Excellency President Mahama's second term when he comes to power on January 7th, 2025. And I want my brother to hold his horses. Very soon, we are going to launch our revised manifesto. You know, we put out a manifesto in 2020. A lot of the things that we indicated we were going to do. 1 million jobs for the youth. Now we've added the 24 hours. There are many positive things, ensuring that technical and vocational education is given pride of place, a national apprenticeship program. The NDC has many positive things that we are coming out with. And so I can say without any iota of doubt, that's why I say I don't want us to dance ourselves lame before the real dance. We are going to launch my manifesto, and I'll look for you and give you a copy so that you can make a very good comparison. So nevertheless, but I still salute you for coming out with positive ideas. The party from which you broke off, now even it has taken the presidential candidate of the party, Mams, it will even name a common thing like a running mate, because he is not his own man. He is controlled by certain kingpins in the party, so he has no clout in the party that can position him. He had somebody he had in mind long time ago, but he couldn't name him. He was struggling. And at a point in time, he had to even make loud complaints in the public that he is being interfered with in the attempt to choose his running mate. This is somebody who wants to lead the country. He can't even name a running mate that he believes he can work with. So you see that he's just a puppet in some people's hands.
Right.
And I don't think he's right for it. But that is how it is. It's a good starter. So,
right,
my brother.
Right.
Except that I will urge you to hasten slowly.
Right. We will start our conversation with an African story, as typical of Pan-African television. We'll look at the Kenyan situation and the fallout from that protest that has seen William Ruto withdraw the finance bill that was supposedly to see some hike in taxes. We'll come back to Ghana. We'll look at the alleged sale of some SNIT hotels, maybe not alleged now, as the facts have been established. There are new developments. Elizabeth Ohene breaks silence, says SNIT did no wrong in hotel sale. Also, we'll look at the ongoing ambulance saga. Godfred Dame confronts Jakpa in battle of wits, and this story has been captured by the Daily Searchlight newspaper. And then finally, we'll look at the running mate issue in relation to the New Patriotic Party. The flag bearer of the party, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has made a choice, but it appears that this choice has not gone down well with a lot of people in the party, including some members of parliament. We shall be looking at that story as well. So without further ado, we'll get into our first story. But before that, you can see the text line on your screens. Make sure you share your thoughts, your messages with me. I'll be more than pleased, I'll be more than glad to read as the show progresses. So our very first story, Kenya's president withdraws tax plan after deadly protest. We've learned that at least 22 people have been killed. Parliament was set ablaze. I think about 5 Ghanaian parliamentarians were actually there. Yes, when yes, when the Kenyan youth stormed the Kenyan parliament. But they're all fine. And are they back?
Not yet.
Not yet. Right. And so a lot has been happening. But we know the primary reason for the protest, of course, is because of the taxes. We've seen several of those similar taxes here in Ghana. We've made noise about it, but that sort of verve, that sort of, radicalism that is required to stand up against these taxes, we've not been able to do that. In our own small ways, we've been able to protest, but it comes nowhere close to what the Kenyan people have done. But we have also protested in our own ways, and of course, it fell on deaf ears. But Alhaji Ebie Fusini would admit that what the Kenyan people have done is worthy of emulation, and that is what he probably expects of the Ghanaian people as well. Alhaji.
Yeah, let me see, if you think that tomorrow is far, don't forget that it comes after today. So, when you are making phantom promises, when you are seeking to ride on the backs of the people to power on a plethora of empty and utopian promises, you must be careful that it's not far away. You may succeed temporarily in hoodwinking the people with those kinds of phantom promises and securing the mandate, but your exposure is not far. That's why I'm saying that if you think tomorrow is far away, just remember that it comes after today, and today is going. If you peruse the history of the campaign in the run-up to the Kenyan elections, in which the current
President William Ruto,
current president, who was then vice president to Uhuru Kenyatta, ascended to power, it was followed on the back of a lot of promises, including that taxes will not be increased, especially in the quantum that was put forward. It was on the back of the realization that the Kenyan people were already undergoing a lot of burdens arising from heavy taxation, and so some reliefs were going to be made available to them. So you see it's comparison that disgraces a donkey. And you will come to see as we go along that the scenarios that erupted in Kenya were very much present in Ghana. Indeed, many people see very similar attitudes between the Kenyan president now and the current vice president of the Ghana, who is the flag bearer of the MPP and seeking to contest to become president of this republic, on the same plethora of empty promises. And so, when Ruto, by the grace and courtesy of the Kenyan people, ascended to power, I'm sure the last thing they expected was to have seen tax increases, and especially astronomical tax increases. And I heard that this was supposed to yield in the region of almost about $3 or $4 billion. So you can see what has been unleashed on the Kenyan people. And bless, let me pause to salute the Kenyan youth. Look, the future of Africa belongs to the youth. Africa is the most youthful continent on the face of this earth. The percentage of youth as a percentage of the entirety of the population is the highest in the world, in Africa. And so Africa features the most youthful population that we can. And so it's a bounden duty on the current political actors to so act in a way that they can guarantee a better and brighter future for the youth. Now, having seen what was coming, I'm sure the Kenyan youth read that, look, with this regime of extortionate taxation, in addition to already the burdens that the Kenyan people were suffering today, then if they allowed this thing to just go uncontested, it was going to ruin their future. There will be no future for them. And so when the current generation passes and political power passes onto the hands of the youth now, they'll be dealing with a devastated, if not a completely destroyed economy, in which the life will be nothing to write home about for the overwhelming majority of the people. And so they say that he who does not wish to see calamity seeks remedy from his feet. You will use your feet to answer. And so that is why, unlike the situation in Ghana, and I'm making that comparison, you remember the struggle we had in Ghana here over the e-levy?
Yeah.
When Ghanaians were already overburdened with huge taxation, it took just a small group of the youth, not many. Like we see, and that's why I'm comparing and contrasting Kenya and Ghana. A lot of the youth stood aloof. Even though they were complaining that the e-levy will affect everybody, when they called for demonstrations, only Admiral Bernard and his people arise and just a few other people. It did not enlist that mass spontaneous action from the youth like it happened in Kenya. That fight was principally left for us in the minority in parliament to fight. So you see the contrast. They managed to get a lot of Kenyan MPs to endorse the regime of new taxes, and the people and principally the youth to fight to ensure that it was withdrawn. In our case here, it took a struggle from the minority in parliament, backed by only a small tiny section of the youth. The overwhelming majority of the youth stood aside and looked, even though it affected them. And so that speaks volumes about your commitment to build a just, equal, and prosperous society. In that regard, I want to say without any iota of hesitation that our youth need to be more proactive than they are doing. Because like I said, the future belongs to them. If we, the current political actors, are giving free hand, and especially with this government, this insensitive, wicked, corruption-ridden government, if it is allowed to have a field day, there will be nothing left for tomorrow. I've always said it that when you make the hyena the caretaker of your crown, you don't expect to come and find one animal alive. And today, it is being manifested in the invasion of the public purse. President Nana Akufo-Addo said he had come to protect the public purse. In fact, he had come to raid the public purse, and many of his appointees are taking a cue from him, and you can see it manifest. And so the action of the Kenyan youth is to help stem what would have been almost a national disaster for the Kenyan people. Rightly so, and let me at least salute President Ruto. It has come at a very costly price. 22 precious, irreplaceable lives lost. But at least the president humbled enough and has exhibited that level of humility to eat humble pie and say that he has now withdrawn the what do you call it? The bill. I'm a member of parliament. When a bill has been passed, it is only left for presidential assent. So when he says he has withdrawn the bill, I don't know which bill he's withdrawing. Frankly, if it has been passed, unless maybe you go through a rescission, because he has not signed, so maybe you cannot do a rescission. But at the same time, too, you cannot withdraw it because it has passed. It has gone through all the stages that the bill becomes law, the 4 stages or so, to become law. First reading, second reading, including consideration stage, and or the third reading, and then you have the passage and then the presidential assent. So maybe what he's doing now is to withhold the presidential assent. Maybe the president is not going to sign it, and if he doesn't sign it, it doesn't become law.
Yeah.
So that is as far as I know. I don't know, I'm not conversant with the Kenyan constitution to know that if a bill has been passed by parliament and sent to the president for assent, the president Somoto can indicate that he has withdrawn the bill or he has gotten the bill withdrawn. I don't know whether the Kenyan president has those kinds of powers where parliament has passed a piece of legislation, the president on his own and by himself has the authority and the powers to take away parliament's right to legislate. I'm not too sure about that. So this issue of withdrawal is even contentious as you see. But at least he signaled to the country that for now, no effect will be given to the taxes that they are talked about. And that for me is the most important aspect, because that is what brought it. You know, when you hear that there's already an outdooring, it means there was a birth. It was preceded by a birth. If this national disaster arose, it arose because there already was some taxes that were mooted to be passed by parliament for the executive to implement. So I think that is well and good. What it should do now is to do greater consultations, greater involvement. I want to feel, you see, part of the problem is that we have governments that have grossly mismanaged the economy. And this one, in his case, and to be fair to President Ruto, it is not only President Ruto's economic malaise that contributed to this. I mean, he's taking over from a successor.
Yeah.
So some of these problems and debts and others came from Uhuru Kenyatta. To be fair to President Ruto, okay. So it may come on the back of some heavy economic issues that were not properly handled. And so in that respect, a national dialogue on the way forward in respect of this matter is crucial. And I think that the president has a bounden duty now to now do wide consultations with members of the, not just of the opposition, but the Kenyan polity. And by that I mean civil society organizations, farmers groups, other interest groups, business people, all walks of life, the youth in particular. And I think in this matter, the youth should have a huge representation in the run-up to whatever consultations and involvement the government intends to do. So that at the end of the day, yes, people may have an appreciation of the fact that even in the event that you need to even increase or bring in new taxes, what regime of taxes are you bringing?
Right.
That will be manageable to the people. And I'm saying of this thing because, you see, in voting for people, we should be very conscious of this issue. We had in this our country a political party enunciating Ghana beyond 8, enunciating a policy and indicating that they were bringing in somebody who was an economic whiz kid, who told us that Ghana is a rich country, that we can develop without borrowing, and that borrowing is an act of lazy governance, and that when they come, they will not borrow. Today, they have borrowed us into extinction. We are deep in the doldrums. Our economy has been declared bankrupt. We can't pay our service, our debts. Our economy is in the doldrums. And I heard my Gina brother and making some fantasy pronouncement, not fantastic, about how the economy had turned a corner and we are now basking. When you can't even pay the common denominator, you can't even pay your debt. You are a universally acclaimed debtor, and you are pronouncing your liberation from the economic malaise. Where has anybody ever had that? Your economy is rated junk. Okay, there are many people who have sacrificed over the years, who you are owing, who you gave crude haircuts. You can't even pay them now. Only yesterday, bless. These people were on the street. Gold Coast, they call them what? Those who put their monies in some savings and other schemes that the government eventually ran those banks down.
Forgotten.
All of them, they are still, the pensioners are still even struggling with their. You are asking that you even want to give them a further haircut. This one is not, they are not going to give them a haircut. They will cut off their heads. And so, clearly, we are beginning to see that there is a rising and awakening youth in this country.
Right.
And I, as a political actor, I want to earnestly appeal to my colleagues. If you don't get up and do something, bless, and take on board the interests and aspirations of our youth, my brother, one day we will have an explosion on our hands that we can never handle.
Thank you very much.
Eventually, because people think that Ghanaians, they are very peace-loving, they are malleable, they will never do that. My brother, that's a grave mistake. Ghanaians can be like any other people. And when that time comes, and the realities are not done to ensure that their tomorrow is taken care of, my brother, they will come after everybody.
Right.
And at that time, nobody will be safe.
Right. Thank you, Alhaji Ebe Fuseni, Member of Parliament for the Saginaw constituency. Let me come to Duke Sasu. I've seen you written a lot of pointers down. So there's so much you have to say on this topic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Interestingly, it is amazing how the Kenyan situation is largely reflective of the challenges we have in our own country. But secondly, it is quite amazing and how prophetic Honorable Alantra Martin is. Because within the limits of these challenges, propositions he has made within the Agri Transformational Plan that address these challenges. But let me say that Kenya is where they are today mainly because of successive failures of different governments. From the Mwai Kibaki era, all the way to the Uhuru Kenyatta era, all the way to William Ruto era. So it means that the anger of the youth in Kenya has been piled up for years because the different leading political parties or who are leading the conversations in Kenya have failed them. And they have come to a point where they've realized that political promises do not guarantee them any future in Kenya. So when you find young people in Kenya running around with anger, there's an expression of years of failure, reflective of the years of failure that the NDC and the MPP has failed young people in this country. The years that the NDC under John Mahama and the MPP under the Kanga government have undermined the progress of young people in this country. That is how successive failures have actually affected our progress as a nation. And it is time that we put aside party politics in our country. Because the only way young people can progress, can benefit from the resources of the state is when there's an individual who says that opportunities for young people will not be based on whether or not you have a party card, but because you're a Ghanaian. That should be the base of you accessing opportunity in this country. And that is what we must underline. But secondly, we need to have a conversation as to why Kenya is where they are within this conversation. It is reflective on issue of promises against a plan. So what we had when my own friend William Ruto and we knew the political climate was that promises were made that, oh, I will decrease the rate of unemployment, I will decrease taxation, I will decrease taxes, but never at any point could they show how that will be done. Never could they show that. But if you go to page 66 of the Great Transformational Plan, and I will respectfully take my time to show you how young people have been carefully represented by Honorable Alan Chemantin in his GTP. He has about 13 policy solutions telling young people that not only am I for young people, but he's showing them how he will engineer the prosperity of young people. 13 policy solutions here, right here in this book. They are here. And that is why within the past 48 hours, over 1,000 people have contacted me personally, young people, saying that they want to read the gospel according to Alan, because they understand that the progress and prosperity of young people, the book that will give them hope, is the gospel according to Alan, the GTP. The next conversation needs to be on issue of hikes. What you have my senior brother and respected NDC do in their manifesto, that they'll come and tell you that we will decrease taxes, we would promote local businesses. Then you ask them how, because within their manifesto that he tells you, it was based on same promises, no fundamental medium of how it will be done, and that has been our problem. And young people are working in this country. We are not sleeping at all, and so we are interrogating the issues, and we are looking for who has a plan that will address this country. And I'll refer you to page 15 of the GTP. Right here, page 15, where Honorable Alan Chemantin says that I am going to lower taxes and duties. And he prescribes as many as 8 policy solutions. So he has not only said I will lower taxes, but he has shown you how he will do that. And he says that we need them to achieve the lowest tax rate in the ECOWAS sub-region within a period of 3 years. He has given you a timeline. That is a man of integrity with a timeline approach to how he
is he going to do that?
And he goes further. He says that we need to eliminate the existing compounded calculation of VAT by consolidating the National Health Insurance, NHIA, and Get Fund levies with the VAT rate. So that is an approach he's giving you. He said we need to abolish special import levy of 2%. We must abolish COVID-19 health recovery levy. You know why? Why young people should be happy about this? Taxes have an impact on how businesses thrive. When the taxes are higher, it means that the ability for business to survive is minimized. Thereby, ability to create more jobs for young people is also minimized at the core. So, creating a flexible tax regime where businesses can thrive is at the core of creating jobs for young people. The NDC and the MPP have no plan for you. All they have is promises. I will, I will, I will. But not only does Alan Chemantin's policy show you, but it confirms the legal narrative that a shall is a mandatory one. Because within, at the core of this, is a shall that says that it shall be done. Why? Because I have laid out the approach that I will mainly do this. The political rhetorics are over. No, it's now time for a plan. But finally, in my submission, the reason why Kenya is where they are is because of political and cultural polarization with the Luos and the Kikuyus and all those tribal elements within Kenya. And the political polarization between the Uhuru Kenyatta faction, the Raila Odinga faction, the William Ruto faction, is one that has brought Kenya to where they are today. But Alan Chemantin says that, listen, it is time for us to push for a government of national unity. A government where he relays the words of Lee Kuan Yew, the former Prime Minister of Singapore, who says that we must have our best men in government. Not our political friends, not our family and friends, but people of competence, character, and credibility. That should be our base of serving our country. So he says, and then he goes further, and he mentions under page 40 of the GTP. Now we talk with evidence, we talk with the basis, and we make reference to the gospel according to Honorable Alan Chemantin. And we refer you to page 40, where he talks about public sector reforms and how his appointment process will be. So he says that he will have 40 ministers. And let me tell you why that is realistic. You know, we have 16 regions. The constitution mandates you that you must have at least a minister for each region. That is 16. So he has 24 more to appoint. Now, the constitution mandates you that you must have at least 19 cabinet ministers, right? So that is 19 plus 16, that is 35. So it means that within the constitution, 35 ministers is enough to get things done. Then within his discretion, he has only 5 additional ministers. Quite historic.
No deputies.
He goes further to tell you the ministries he creates. Never has it happened in our history that before he comes to office, he's clearly telling you that he's not only telling you that I reduce the size of the government. He's telling you the ministers he's going to appoint and what roles they will hold. So he says that the constitution mandates statutory that must have an attorney general. The statutory. So that is one. Secondly, he's going to combine the Ministry of Finance and Trade. So we're going to have a minister for finance, economy, trade, and industry. Why? Because trade and finance have they work together. And so when you have an overriding responsibility, it allows for you to have focal implementation that advances our country. And he says that under that, we'll have a minister of state for trade and industry. Then we'll have a minister of state for finance and economy. So we have three ministers there. So we have attorney general, finance, economy, trade and industry. You have minister of state for trade and industry, minister of state for finance and economy. So you have 4 now. You have minister for food, agriculture and fisheries. Why must we have a different ministry for food and agriculture, for fisheries? It doesn't make sense. Waste of resources for the state. And he shows you that. We must have minister for foreign affairs and regional integration, so we maintain that because of its focal relevance. Minister of defense, a focal one. Minister for education, a focal one. Then we have a minister of state for basic and secondary education. So that will be another one, which will fall under the minister for education in that regard. We have minister for health. They have a minister of state for traditional medicine and mental health. Focal element there. Minister for interior. We have minister for infrastructure, transport, roads and highways. All these railways, they all fall under the same category. Why should we have minister for railways, minister for roads, duplication of roads, and irrelevant expenditure and irrelevant usage of our resources? He says that something that John Mahama couldn't do and has not done and will not do. Something that Baba Omia has no intention to do because he's a part of a government that has over 80 ministers after they promised to reduce the very size of the government. He said that he will consolidate these ministries in that regard. He talked about energy and natural resources. That is land, water bodies, mining, oil and gas, not energy. And having a minister of state for lands and mineral resources. And that will fall under the very ministry for energy. Then you have a youth and sports. Because the youth are focal. The youth are the most important demography in our country. And so a focal responsibility will be given for the youth in that regard. Then we have the Minister for Local Government and Decentralization. We have Minister for Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation. We have Minister for Tourism and Culture. Now we have Minister for Tourism, we have Minister for Culture and all those elements. There's an interlinkage in there. Our culture is a focal tourism element that we need to promote. We must link them in that regard. Minister for Labor, Minister for Women, Children and Social Welfare. He believes that empowering our women is so fundamental. Our women are a weapon that we have to activate if we must build our country. He shows you this on page 40 of the GTP. Clear. Then he says that in appointing these ministers, the Constitution mandates me under Article 78 of the Constitution to appoint majority of my ministers from Parliament. What I will do is that if my senior brother here is one who is competent, credible, and has a track record that is undeniable, whether he's MDC or MPP doesn't matter. All what matters is that he's a Ghanaian. And I'm willing to work with him in my government. That is progress. And he says that I also include the private sector, the academia. So essentially, the situation in Kenya will be averted when you have a government that brings on board all skills and resources, no matter where you're coming from. That is what Alan Chemanten says. And I'm sure that my brothers and sisters in Kenya will take a clue from this. Soon we'll be organizing workshops across the continent, advising African governments on how to use the GTP to build their very continent. And that is the vision of Alan Chemanten.
Thank you so much, Duke Sasu. I see AB has written some pointers down as well. I'm sure he has some responses.
My brother earlier on, he's thrown the question to the wind. You see, if you take a trumpet and you blow your achievements, you should be prepared for your deficit. Others will speak loudly from the rooftops about your deficit. To to begin with, this issue about the downsizing of government, the first person to broach that subject and to indicate clearly he was going to have a meeting of not less than 15 minutes was President John Dramani Mahama. He initiated that discussion and indicated about the need for the downsizing of government, and that this government was so extravagant and expansive and did not fall in line with the needs of Ghanaians. But my brother is talking of.
Sorry, sir, can I ask
He's talking.
a quick question. Please, how many ministers did John Mahama have when he was president?
I'm just indicating that President Mahama.
No, I don't know how many ministers he had.
Yes,
when he was
just
president.
the President Mahama downsized from the government of the MPP that he.
How many did he have
elected.
there?
That's what I'm telling you.
He had over 80 ministers.
Yes, and I'm just
And
indicating.
now he has the moral right to come and argue on
What was so why?
So he didn't have the clarity at the time.
Allow.
I'm saying that you are opening the Pandora's box and you will come out worst of.
We are not prepared, sir.
You see, because you see, I'm just Alan Chiramantin is not just descending from space. He was an integral leading member of the New Patriotic Party. Today he's prepared to throw the MPP and everything under the bus, as if he never existed, even the MPP. He was made Minister for Trade and Industry for how many years? The so-called one district, one factory that they gave to him under the aegis of the MPP. What has become of it? It has been a waste pipe. If you look at the quantums of money sunk in that project, today, what has... Well, it was supposed to be an out of import substitution. Where has it taken us? Where has that taken us? You are talking about credible record of somebody who has been in government. Sometimes you can speak with fantasy when you are sitting outside. When you have not, this is as first President Kufuor said, that when he was not president, he had some ideas about the size of government. When he came in, he even thought you could deal with some 40 or 50 people. He came in and he got close to 100 plus. Okay? So it is not even just the act of making phantom promises, but living the reality of the distance. And President Mahama has that experience to tell you that having been in government, this time when I can bring it back to this number. He's talking from experience, not experiment. The experimentation you want to engage in. You are experimenting. Experiment can never be like experience. Never. You can't compare experiment to experience. Okay? And it has been indicated succinctly when you are talking about the youth. The programs that the NDC started with and envisage when President Mahama comes back. Not only the 1 million, the free technical and vocational education that he's talking about. The 24-hour policy that is targeted at the youth, and especially in areas of ICT expansion. And when you are talking about this, these are concrete things President Mahama did under his government from 2013 to 2017 January. So, my brother, it is not just an issue of talk, because you are here, all of us said, it's easy, cheap. Talk is cheap. You can say, even somebody can come and say that, notwithstanding the Constitution says 19
cabinet ministers.
Cabinet must constitute 19 ministers. Somebody can even come and say that he can have even 15 ministers and revise the Constitution. He can work with only 15 ministers. He can say that. And we will receive the applause. When he comes, can he do it? 15. So you see, it's easy. Talk is cheap. You can put everything in a document, say whatever, and when you come to power, you throw the document away and go and do something else. It has happened. We have seen it under this government. We have seen a government that initiated no borrowing. And this is the most reckless, irresponsible borrowing we have had in our history. When all these things were going on, Mr. Alan Chematin was part of the government. He never came out to say that I oppose these policies that the government is implementing. And that is what we call principle. If you are a principled person and you are in the midst of a government and that government is running counter to the interests and aspirations of the people, you exit. So that you have the moral standing to say that I am no longer part of this because what I thought is no longer. And so you are standing on a higher moral pedestal to talk about it. And people will accord you that greater respect and responsibility So I think that plus or minus, it is the deeds that matter than the words. Jimmy Cliff sang his song and said, action speaks louder than words. After the words, anybody can come and say anything. Anybody can put anything in a blueprint and say it. We have seen it in this country. Today, look at the sorry state in which our economy has been sunk into. And so when we are talking about the pluses and minuses of the MPP, Mr. Alanchamati cannot run away totally. I agree that at a certain point he exited. He saw that the ship was sinking and he jumped off. So yes, he dissociated himself from some parts of the policy, but he cannot dissociate himself from the entirety of the policy of the MPP. Because at a certain point, he implemented the policies of the MPP. That has led us today to the quagmire and to the deep trench that we are in. How on earth can you totally exonerate yourself? You are part of that responsibility. It's just like Bawumia said that make him the driver because he was only a mate. And that he bore no responsibility for what happens. Even when it suits him, then he can go back and cite some of the things. When it suits them, they can say even the one DC water, they put a factory here and it was a brainwork of Alanchamati. That had been under what? Was it not under the same bankrupt MPP we are talking about?
Right, Alaji, thank you.
So I'm saying that
we
when you are blowing your trumpet, be careful.
Right.
Because you will blow your achievements and forget that you have backside.
Right. Briefly, yes.
No, not briefly. Within the space of time you give my senior brother, it's important we engage accordingly. Most respectfully, I think that there is a counter, in the greatest respect, or let me say there's an illogical conversation from my senior brother here. In one breath, he says that, John Mahama says that he's going to reduce the size of government to 50, or whatever number he preaches. Then on one breath, he says that, well, he could not defend John Mahama's track record in how many people he appointed as ministers when he was president.
But he also argues.
Then he said, no, let me conclude. Hold on.
I'm also saying, he's also saying,
let me conclude.
And so he reduced the size.
Senior, you asked me to keep quiet so you proceed.
Interfered.
Oh, so you find it
I have every right to interfere, by the way. But
if I may finish my conversation. Let me finish my conversation. Hold on, let me finish, please.
Okay.
Then my senior brother then says that, also, President Kufuor says that it can probably be a fantasy to assume that you can reduce the side of government and that the relative is when it comes to the government. You know what that is? That is a doubt as to how he will implement a reduction in the government. Because on one breath, you are convinced that John Mahama will reduce the size of government. But you then refer to the potential fantasy application when the relative dawns on you.
So, but then again, I'm coming.
So, essentially, there is a lack of conviction. No, there is a lack of conviction.
No.
Please. Let me finish my
wait. I can proceed. He's also basing that argument on the fact that John Mahama has been president before, unlike Kufuor, His Excellency John Azikun Kufuor, who at the time was the flag bearer of the party and then became president and saw that the gravity of the situation required more ministers.
So you are saying that I've gone to a food joint and I've been poisoned by the seller. And the seller tells me that he had learned his lesson that next time when I come around, I wouldn't be poisoned.
No, but you can't.
That's the logic. That is the basic logic. So you are saying no.
You can't.
Listen. Conversations on leadership are based on your track record, and that conversation cannot be taken up at this very stage. You have been president before. What did you do? No, hold on, please. Don't interject at this point.
Right.
Because it is clear that what you have done before should be the basis of us showing what you can do tomorrow. And if you cannot show that, you have no moral right to make that very argument. But then again, it's important to have a conversation on Alanchamati's track record.
Right.
The track record that Alanchamati will defend is his role as Minister of Trade. And he holds it so proudly to his chest. My brother tells me that 1D1F has failed. 1D1F, that has employed over 12,000 people in this country. 1D1F. No, hold on. The next conversation is that the MPP people are, in quote, shamefully going around trumpeting the 1D1F as the achievement in all that regard. But let me even list out focally that 5 out of the 6 leading car manufacturers are now in Ghana because of Alanche Martin. It tells you that within the limit of his responsibility as a minister for trade, which we can hold him to account to, he delivered. Tell me where, how, and what he did not do. The issue of taxes, it is not his duty. He can advance the argument, but the Minister of Finance is one that will have ultimate duty in that reduction process capacity. That's why Alan says that he needs to merge Ministry of Trade and Industry and Ministry of Finance in order to get things done appropriately. But also, he talks about the need for issues of credibility on Alan's track record, and I will list out a number for you. Listen, Alan initiated the National Friday Wear. 14 years down the line, the use of Ghanaian fabric for work, leisure and occasions has become the norm. Let me list again. He established the PSR on textiles, which came to the rescue of the nation in 2020 when they produced the much needed PPEs and masks, both for local use and for exports to the sub-region. Right. Please, you gave him time.
No, I'm giving you time. I'm giving you time.
I must end. Please, I must end.
I'm giving you time.
Unfortunately, you cannot. In the next, please. The submissions, they'll be unfair.
I'm being very fair. I'm being very fair.
Is what undermine our country.
No.
Because we are not allowing fairness to pro.
Relax.
But we think that young people don't have voices. Young people will trumpet the voice of credibility, the voice of progress and truth. I will show you that John Mohammed has the credibility on this stage. You show you on this stage.
I have my time here.
You spoke for how many hours?
Wait.
You spoke.
I have.
You know how long you spoke?
Duke.
You spoke so much. I was standing here.
I'm very observant with the time. I'm coming.
No.
I'm coming.
You spoke
even in the beginning. I'm coming. Even in the beginning, we didn't start the show on time. We're supposed to start the show at 8 a.m. It was 8:30 that we started because you didn't come. I'm coming. I've been tracking the time.
You've not.
I've been tracking the time. I have been tracking the time.
You've not,
and we have a lot of issues to discuss.
Proceed.
If we are going to another conversation and you want to use your time to talk about that,
proceed. But now let's know how many minutes have you spoken.
I'm timing it. You are not timing. For how many minutes?
Let's know. He spoke for the first time. He spoke over 50 minutes.
And how long did you speak?
I didn't track my time.
So I was tracking. So how have you been tracking?
I know I spoke less. Anyway, you proceed. How do you know?
How have you been tracking someone? Proceed.
You don't know how many minutes.
I have been tracking someone else's time, but I'm not tracking it. So you see,
15 minutes on this. You see that
you are not tracking your time, but you are tracking his time.
Somebody's time. My time is right here. It's right here. I don't want to mention it. It's right here.
Right. Would proceed to other conversations.
Please, how many minutes does it speak have?
Would proceed to other. Would proceed to other conversations. I'm tracking the time. I'm the person who solely determines the time that each person speaks. That is my authority over here. So if I say your time is up, your time is up. I'm tracking the time. I'm coming, and I'm being as fair as possible. Okay, so would proceed to other conversations. We are looking. I'm being very fair. We are looking at other conversations. Don't worry. When he starts speaking, you can time him, and when you also start speaking, you can time yourself.
You see that you didn't time yourself.
If you don't know
how many minutes you spoke, you can conclude that about 10 minutes.
If you had timed yourself, you wouldn't be making this argument. If you had timed yourself, you wouldn't be making this argument. We'll move on to other conversations. We are looking at the SNIT hotels. There have been new developments. The board chair of SNIT, Elizabeth Ohene, has come out to make some, I would say, startling revelations with regards to what Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, the Member of Parliament for the North Tongue constituency, he has been leading this charge with regards to the sale of the SNIT hotels. Had it not been him, I think this would have been done on the blind side of Ghanaians. Nobody would have come out to speak about it, but he's been very vocal with regards to this particular subject matter. And so the board chair of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, that is SNIT, Elizabeth Ohene, has clarified that neither the president nor the government was involved in the decision to sell 60% shares of SNIT hotels. In her weekly column published in the state-owned newspaper Daily Graphic, Ms. Ohene expressed surprise over claims by the North Don MP, Samuel Okujetu Ablakwa, suggesting that President Akufo-Addo and his government were involved in the process. There's been directives from the president as well that SNIT should resolve this in the next fortnight. I think, if I'm not wrong, a week has passed already, so they have until next week to resolve every matter regarding this particular sale of hotels, for us to know exactly what will be done, whether the hotels will be sold to Rock City or it won't be sold, primarily. So that's what we are waiting for the 2-week period to elapse, and then we know that there's a final determination as to what will be done to these hotels. Alhaji.
Bless. They say that when a case unduly delays at the chief's palace, the weaker man has a strong case. The president of the republic, in whom Ghanaians have invested all this power and authority, including the right to take decisions that are in the supreme national interest and in the supreme interest of the good people of this country, gets no mean an opportunity but to meet the leadership of labor and concern Ghanaians on the potential looting of state assets. And the president throws the ball back. So you see, not only is he showing indecisiveness, but he's lending credence to people who says that anytime any of his appointees or organizations run into trouble of potential conflict of interest or corruption issues, he is the chief clearing agent. Because this is an area the president is seized with authority and power to just indicate that, look, as far as my administration is concerned, we are no longer going to allow those assets to be sold. Finished. Straightforward. The president has that power and authority to do that. Let nobody come and tell us that he has put SNIT board in place, and so that matter, he cannot override. The president has dissolved boards. Bless, don't forget, look at Ghana cylinder manufacturing. You remember there was some allegation made against the CEO and others. Instead of going into the matter, the president said, you can't make those allegations and dissolve the entire board. This president, you have no mean a matter than the potential looting of the resources of the nation. And then you say, go back within 1 week and go and see. Incredible. From the president of the republic. So that is why it is very difficult to isolate him from all those charges that have been made. And I think that this is a very unfortunate and shameful to say the least. Do you remember also that in this same matter, no mean a person than the former chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Mr. Freddie Blay, has put in the public domain that his son, his 34-year-old son, came out with between $150 million and $200 million to buy the hotels. And that they did not consider his bid. What were we told in this SNIT saga? That the Honorable Brian Chapo and his company put $61 million. And that was the highest. You see, that's why I say a lie is like a pregnancy. The older it grows, the more exposed it becomes. Every day this thing goes on, more information is coming to the contrary. Because if Freddie Blay is to be believed, let's even take the lower side of what he presented, $150 million. So compare $150 million and $61 million. Bless, is it not more than twice that amount? Almost getting to 3 times. Am I lying? So if you indicated to Ghanaians that you went for the highest bidder, how could $150 million be rejected and 61 will be taken? And this information is available to the president. And that's why I said, even upon hearing this in any serious country, if this was a serious country, Mr. Freddie Bray would have been invited to indicate which company, which businesses he has done, gotten that money, paid his taxes, all that is before even this his 34-year-old son. What his 34-year-old business is doing, if he has paid his taxes, he has met all his obligations. Okay, but this information has been put on as far as these hotels are concerned. And like I said, it features no mean organization than labor. And that is why I want to also add to our labor leaders that they are holding in trust power, authority, and resources of the working people of this country. They have a bounden duty at all times to stand up tall in defense of the working people and their interests in this country. And so if they indicated, we have subsequently heard that there are 4 members on the SNIT board opposed the sale. And so if they have opposed the sale, they've gone back to the president, and this matter is coming. Organized labor need to flex its muscles right for the president to get the unmistaken message that they, the working people and the people of Ghana, are not ready for this lootocracy going on. This unbridled, unfettered looting of state resources, as if there will be no tomorrow. They are scrambling because they are on the verge of losing power to get all their hands and their cronies take possession of these resources. This is a fight organized labor cannot compromise with. And so irrespective of whatever ultimatum has been given, 1 week or 2 weeks or whatever time, under no circumstance should the working people allow this important state assets to be sold for a sum. Especially now that information is coming to the contrary, that even higher bids were put in place and they were not accepted. So what is now the rationale? What is now the rationale? My honorable colleague Okujetu has subsequently even put more information in the public domain regarding what even the GRA has done. I hear from his information that the GRA has now even sanctioned, what's the name of the hotel? Brian's place.
Rock City.
Rock City. That for 2022, the whole of those, there was no filing of tax returns, contrary to the laws of this country. What has happened? And so in the face of all these infractions and abuses, you have a president who is satisfied with the current status quo to the point that I say, oh, no, this one I don't find, you go there. When he could have said in simple language, the transaction, I have put a stop to it. It is no longer coming. And this matter will end. He had a fine opportunity when he met labor, at least to even say that following the pressure mounted by organized labor, I have listened to them. And I think that they make a very good case. So I have decided that as president, and he has that authority, he has that power, I have decided that my government will no longer go ahead with the divesting of those state properties. Finish. That the president has stoically refused to do that speaks volumes about what is happening inside the traders and other dealings that are going on in the MPP government about state resources, state capture. And so when we in the NDC put up this state capture, we're not just saying it out of the necessary, the usual political people think it is. Because we in the NDC, when we say that this thing is a mail, we are holding it by the balls. And so clearly, if I say I am disappointed, as if I don't know the character of the president and what he does with matters like this. Ever since he came to power, he has never held one of his appointees, one, to book. Not one. And so he will say that all his appointees have been saved. Not one. We don't compare with even President Mama, when even somebody just made a statement about an aspiration to get $1 million. Aspiration, no. He didn't say he has taken the money. He was fired. Okay? So that speaks volumes about the character of leadership. And that is why many people say that it is not, Ghana is never a poor country. We are a very rich country. Our biggest problem has been that leadership. And especially in critical situations like this, to take the right decision to inure to the benefit of the good people of this country. And so I just know that this is the same musical chairs you will play around with the thing in the hope that Ghanaians, our memory is short, and after some time, some weeks, we'll forget about it. And they'll go ahead and amass that property. So that even when they are out of power, which by the grace, inshallah, they'll be out of power on January 7th, 2025, they can still sit outside and enjoy the loot. And I think that Ghanaians will not accept this for any reason that the president will fathom.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Abie Fuseni. I'll read a few messages, then I'll come to my brother, Duke Sasu. Well, I've received tons of it. Good morning, Bless. Miss Elizabeth is a disappointment to Ghanaians. No reasonable person will sell the future of her children. Mohammed from Wa. Thank you, Mohammed, for your message. Good morning, Bless, and to your panelists. Who will ever point his left hand at his uncle's house? The politicians on your show won't discredit their individual political parties. They are making no objective submissions. Bless, I like your vim. Don't allow any politician to want to take control of the program. From James in Winneba. Thank you, James, for your message. This one here says that let Alhaji Abie Fuseni know that Alan did not jump out of the boat because it was sinking. He jumped off in grief because he was not voted to be the flag bearer. This same man, Duke, was busily defending Nana and his people 7 years ago in the midst of this rot. No matter how much you paint Alan, he will not be accepted. Okay, thank you for your message. Good morning, Bless. Movement for Change is MPP and next. If Honorable Alan had clear chance of winning MPP primaries, he wouldn't resign from the party. Ghanaians are wide awake. Haruna from Tamale sent this one. Thank you, Haruna, for your message. Okay. I think my viewers generally are not happy about the fact that our conversation here on the show nearly erupted into something else. There are a lot, all the messages, some of them I can't even read because they're unhappy about how so far the show has gone. I'd urge that going forward, at least we make our points without shouting or making any noise. Agreed. Right, let's proceed. Mr. Sasu.
Okay, so once again, thank you to the viewers and all listening to us again. I think that it boils down to issues of perception on corruption in our country. And I think that the statement from the Venerable Madam Elizabeth Ohene is one that I think is quite unfortunate, in my opinion, because when even devoid of the legal intricacies, once again, on the concept of beneficial ownership and its application to how a state, someone who is possibly a key stakeholder in government, has access to governmental property. Perception within our governance architecture is one that is important in sustaining some level of cleanliness in our space. The reason why the Kenya situation has probably erupted was because of the perception of corruption or perception of lack of transparency within the body politic. And so when such things are happening, it's not only a threat to our finances, it's a threat to the very security of the state, because young people within their minds are saying that how is a certain minister of state, a member of cabinet, who is a beneficial owner of a certain organization, having the opportunity to purchase governmental property? So it's a major question that we need to deal with. So wrongs are not only legal, wrongs are also one that can be perception-wise. And that is why if you look at page 40, paragraph 2.11 of the GTP here, Honorable Njamatin lists as many as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 policies or solutions as to how corruption needs to be tackled in general. And I will just mention a few here. He talks about the need to review the Procurement Act to improve inclusive and transparent access to public economic and commercial opportunity whilst reducing collusion. He further mentions that we need to empower civil society anti-corruption organizations and strengthen partnerships between civil society and related public agencies by providing direct and indirect support, including but not limited to access to public funds. He then mentions that it's important that we isolate all corruption-related provisions in existing legislation and consolidate them in one enabling legislation with a clear definition of corruption, including severe sanctions to serve as a deterrent against corruption. So essentially what Honorable Alan Chamantin is saying is that it is important that if you look at our country, for example, we seem to have a different legislation governing. We have SRAJ, we have IOCO, we have the Special Prosecutor, sometimes the AG's office, all with different legislations fighting against corruption issues. We need to isolate these legislations and consolidate them into one enabling instrument so that the definition of corruption will be one that is clarified, clearly identified, and one that will have progressive discourse. So these are progressive solutions and recommendations that allows us to have progress in terms of the fight against corruption, whether perception-wise or whether real. And these are concerns that we ought to have. So once again, let me say that the comments by the Honorable Elizabeth Henning is one that has not. It would have been best if he had probably should have kept quiet on this, because the stories from Kenya is one that tells us the potential of young people in rising up, and these are stories that angers young people. These are stories that young people get to that provokes them out there, that the state's resources are being probably used anyhow and accessed in any dimension, whether actual or only in perception-wise. And we need to manage that in that regard. And the best way is when we have institutions or against of corruption that can authenticate, validate, or ensure that there's progressive discourse on how to engage on some of these very issues. And yes, so that's my submission there.
Right, thank you. I'd want us to quickly, we have some 15 minutes more to close the program. I want us to quickly look at the selection of the Energy Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. I think for a long time we saw this coming. Right from last year, we got the hint that he was going to be selected. But it appears that a lot of people are not. Some people in the NPP themselves are not happy about this choice. And earlier on the show, I made a statement that I think that with whoever the party chooses, people would have some people would have some reservations. But to get to the very extent that you have leading members of the party, especially in Parliament, come out to say that if I had my way, I wouldn't choose this person, then it doesn't look good for the party. And when you take yesterday's newspapers, you take the Daily Graphic and how it reported the receipt of the name of Napo by the president of the country, who is the immediate past leader of the NPP. He said he eventually, that's how the paper reported it, that he eventually accepted Dr. Bawumia's nomination of Matthew Opoku-Prempeh as his running mate. What is your general opinion on his selection?
Okay. Firstly, I think all we can do is to wish them well, basically one. I think that they have a right as to who they will decide on within the limits of the Constitution and whatever they think works for them. Basically, if they think that Napo is one that works for them, we wish them the very best. For us as Ghanaians, what we are questioning as young people is that it's obvious that even the choice as it stands now, there are now reports that there have been 3 different submissions, and that the reportage as such is not one that is credible. It speaks to the fact that the vice president, as to whether or not he's his own man, and whether or not he has the independence of thought in selecting the vice president, is one that we need to question. And we need to question that in view of the fact that we are looking for a man of his own to lead our country. And so you have to compare the leading candidates in this election vis-a-vis Alan John Kwadwo Martin, John Dramani Hama, the vice president, and assess who is independent enough and can make a determination as to who he wants as a running mate. And whether or not that has a correlative effect in assessing, or can be used as a base of assessing how they will be their own men as presidents of the state, or whether or not we will have the likes of His Excellency Nana Addo, the likes of as per perception goes, some influences in government controlling being the hand that controls him, even should he, quite impossible though, could he become president. But also on Nana Po as a man, I think he's one man who has a great appeal perception wise out there. But we will have certain questions. Some of the questions we will ask is, how has he dealt in terms of fuel prices within the energy ministry? And how are ordinary young people in this country affected by transport fares based on the increase in fuel prices? How has he managed that within his ministry? So that we assess his track record in his ministry, whether that can become a basis of assessing how progressive he can be as a running mate and what he brings on board as a running mate. Because credibility is what we are looking for as young people. And so how do we look at his track record as a correlation to his credibility in general? We ought to also assess as well his track record in terms of power stability in our country, so that do we have a stable power supply in our country, and if how is that impacting on big businesses? Is it affecting businesses? Is it such that businesses are struggling? Is the cost of energy now so high that business cannot survive? So we look at his track record within his ministry and assess whether or not he is one that brings about any value for the people of this country. We do not care about whether it's a party narrative. No, it's about the country in general. So how do you impact our nation in general? The third thing is he a symbol of unity? So what we will do is that we will also assess some of his utterances and assess whether he is one that is representative of a unified state, that he has the potential of bringing on board all people in the country, no matter your ethnic background, whether you are Votarian, whether you are a Khan, whether you are a Northerner, whether you are a Dagomba, wherever you are from. Can he bring together people? And we will look historically at his utterances and assess him. And I'm sure he will engage us in that regard as well. So these are the kind of the nuances we will assess. But also, look at someone who will be listening. Is he someone who has the posture to listen to advice and to listen to the voices of experience and the voice of knowledge and integrity out there, such that we have a progressive nation for ourselves? So these are questions we'll interrogate, and I'm sure he will respond accordingly.
Right. I'll read a few messages before I come to Alhaji B.A. Hussaini. Please bless, if MPP are happy about choosing Napo or not, still they will go to opposition. They are not thinking right. Joe from Kanishi Matayeko sent this one. Thank you, Joe. Lloyd says, good morning. In fact, I pity Dr. Bawumia. The Achim Mafia people have succeeded in pushing the arrogant Napo on him as his running mate. Bawumia is in serious trouble. Nana Kwame from Tamale. Thank you, Nana Kwame, for your message. Let me proceed to this one. It says, if Elizabeth Ohene said there's no wrong for SNIT to sell the hotel, she and Nanado should tell Ghanaians the number of hotels they built or infrastructures which, while selling naming projects, they could not build. Okay, thank you so much for your message. You didn't tell me your name and where you sent it from. Good morning, bless. Randolph Duffin, watching from Freetown in Sierra Leone. Thank you for your discussion, which I find to be very interesting, especially with the movement for change, man. My opinion is that I don't think that Alan will win the election, as people do not vote for individuals but the party. Alan should have joined the NDC to create the necessary changes Ghanaians need, but no doubt he will create a huge impact. Okay, thank you for your message, and of course thank you for doing the watching all the way from Freetown in Sierra Leone. Let me proceed to this one, which says that good morning to all on board. Pan-African TV is the best. We are not looking about party colors, but we are looking for a competent person who minds or who thinks about his own people. President Akufo-Addo and Vice Bawumia have demolished Ghana already. They just collapsed everything. Look at the way Ghanaians are suffering. The price of everything has increased, but there is no money. Dr. Bawumia now is a comedian. JM is ever ready to listen to his people all the time. My name is Joseph Dari. I'm watching you live from Sefi, Bibiani in the Western North region. Right, thank you. Alhaji, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, a potent threat to Madam Jena Opoku-Agyeman.
First and foremost, let me congratulate my colleague, Member of Parliament, Honorable Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, for being selected the running mate to the failing and ultimately failed ambitions of the MPP flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. First and foremost, bless, I think we should not be too enamored about having a lot of time invested in the discussion of running mates. Yes, there's something they can bring on board and others, but I am saying that when the house itself, and listen to me, bless, when the house itself has fallen, do you ask whether the roof is still standing? Bless, you hear that a house has collapsed. Will you ask whether the roof is still up there? The MPP as a political party is collapsing. In the run-up to the 2024 election, the MPP itself, their leading members, they know that they are on their way to opposition. So, irrespective of whoever they go and bring, they can go and bring back President Kufuor. I even said somebody right that I don't want to sound blasphemous, that they can bring the most potent prophet of religion or anybody as their running mate. It will not change their political fortunes. They are bound for opposition. That running mate by himself or herself cannot prevent the MPP from going to opposition. Because why? They have hopelessly mismanaged the economy and thrown the lives of Ghanaians into jeopardy. So no matter who they pick as running mate, the MPP is doomed. Nothing can salvage them at there. You just go back and listen to Nana Akufo-Addo when he was speaking Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. And I will come to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and you see that he's not made to be president. He's not competent to handle the affairs of this nation. When even a matter of choosing a running mate has taken him this long. You remember he appeared before the MPP National Council many months ago and pleaded for extension, just in a matter of just indicating who your running mate is. And my understanding is that he has always had Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh as his preferred candidate. But because he's a puppet, he could not name him. He himself was handpicked and brought into the party when he was not even a member of the New Patriotic Party. In fact, there were many who associated Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as an NDC person in 2008 when Nana Akufo-Addo was speaking him. They had to look for a special dispensation to waive that demand for membership of the MPP before he was brought in. So he himself is a puppet of somebody. So if that somebody is not pleased with the person he's bringing, he cannot name him. So Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, flag bearer of the MPP, is not a man of his own. He cannot take decisions on his own. If Ghanaians make a mistake and make him the president, he will be dictated to by somebody sitting on the sidelines. This country will be run from outside. It will be run by a cabal that exists. And you know, let me name him clearly. He was brought in by Ken Ofori-Atta. And it is the likes of the Ken Ofori-Attas and Nana Akufo-Addo who dictate to him, if in a likely event, may Allah not punish Ghanaians by making Dr. Bawumia president again. President even once. We pray to the Almighty Allah to have mercy on us and not make Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia come anywhere closer to the presidency. Because he will be a puppet. He is not a man of his own. He cannot do things on his own. He will be dictated to. Because I say it, and MPP people know it, that for a long time he had Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh as his running mate. He could not name him. They had to go and do all this contrived NIB or former BNI, now called what? NIB. They have to go through all those difficulties just to find a justification for him to then stand on it and say, oh, he will declare this. When you are a man of your own, you believe that he should have named Dr. Matthew Opoku Pepe long time ago. He couldn't do that. So, Massa, let's not leave the substance of the issues and be considering the forms. I think that the substance of the issue is that the MPP is a catastrophic failure. They have disappointed God, Allah Almighty, and disappointed the good people of this country. And I'm not sure they will get the blessings. Nana Akufo-Addo's classic, catastrophic, biggest manhole on the surface of this earth, featuring as a cathedral, is a classic example of that failure to the Almighty and to Ghanaians. So for me, plus or minus, everybody has his pluses or minuses. But I don't think that the running mate chosen can change the fortunes of the MPP by himself. Because even the head himself is a huge deficit. When you are talking about credibility and others, Dr. Mabubaya, and I'm not the one saying it, you can go and Google Ghana Web about who has the biggest credibility deficit as a politician. You see which name will come out. So clearly, I think that Ghanaians will be assessing the man who will be put in charge to take the positive decisions. And like I said, evidence, the government say evidence is better than an oath. And when it comes to that evidence, President Mahama has been there before. There were certain policies, yes, the NDC didn't get right. I will be the first to admit that we didn't get everything right, but we got many things right. Just make a comparison of the economy today, bless. Make a comparison. When President Mahama was exiting office on 7th January 2017, inflation was 15%. Of course, it could have been better. Today, what is inflation? Our total indebtedness from independence to 2017, 7th January was 120 billion. Today, we are in excess of 657 plus. That is as at January this year. February this year, sorry. Okay? We have been booted out of the capital markets under the watch of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia as the chairman of the economic management team. Our economy has been declared junk. In fact, they Fitch and Moody's and Standards and Poor's, they further went and made it even further junk. I have never read of anything like this in the country. Okay? The tired civil and public servants who have invested their monies and others in the, have been giving very crude, wicked haircuts. And they have had to go and hold demonstrations at the finance ministry to champion for their monies. The economy is in shambles. Today, one single tomato, small tomato like this, is selling for 5 cedis. Now, if you are going to buy pepper, they count about 5 or 6 and sell it to you for 5 cedis. Today, never in the annals of our country's history, those of us who love keke, when you go now, they are not selling keke and selling shito. Pepper.
Right.
Now you are buying pepper for the first time under the watch of Nana Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawumia. The lives of Ghanaians today is in a horrible mess. That is what Ghanaians are going to look at. No running mate, whoever they choose, can salvage them from this morass they have sunken the country into. So, Massa, for that one, they say the man who has died in the market.
There's no need to announce the
funeral. No need to announce.
Thank you very much, Alhaji Abi Hussaini, for your time this morning. Thank you, Duke Sasu, for your time as well. It's been a little bit of heat in there, but then generally it's been an insightful conversation on the show. And to our cherished viewers across the continent, those of you who watched us from other parts of the country, those of you particularly from northern Ghana who are always glued to Pan-African Television, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, by the way, 9 a.m., Alhaji and Alhaji comes your way with Sena Nombo. It's going to be, as usual, a very detailed conversation about happenings in the country. We don't want to miss it. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Other stations across the country would pick it as well. Make sure you do well to listen. For the meantime, make sure you enjoy your weekend. I'll catch you on Monday. Bye-bye.